and he was tied up and not able to be here today. But tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this effort.
Thanks, Joe. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm volunteering this year with Bob Murray Housing with Love Walk. I got involved through the Homeless Prevention Council. I was involved in fundraising for them a few years ago before I retired, and then always intended once I retired to get back into something like this. And so I went to Dave Willard at Boston at Cape Cod 5, and he sent me straight to Bob Murray. Said he can use you.
He certainly
and so,
can.
yeah, so I've been helping out with getting the word out about the walk this year.
One of the things I know about Bob, he's been extremely successful in recruiting people who are movers and shakers and
Right.
get things done. So that's terrific. For the people out there that may not know a lot about the walk, can you just tell us a little bit about the history?
So the Housing with Love Walk has been going on now since the 21st year, and folks walk from Provincetown starting on Monday, the 15th, all the way to Falmouth over the course of a week. Most folks don't walk the entire way, but some do. Most people walk small segments of it, for example, right here in Harwich. And the purpose is to raise money for 11 agencies that deal with homeless prevention and helping families stay in their homes. Last year, the walk raised over $250,000. That's our goal again this year. And over the course of the 20 years, it's raised almost $4 million. So Bob's gotten quite a lot of notoriety, if you will, and accolades from everywhere from the governor through the Congress, et cetera, for this. He started it himself. He's walked it every year himself, and as you said, he's a force of nature, and it's amazing what he's done for the folks here on the Cape.
It certainly is. I mean, the fact that anyone can walk that distance, in my mind, is quite an accomplishment. I don't think I could do it. I think it would be helpful if maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the programs that this walk benefits.
Right. The primary focus for this walk is to raise money for the agencies that deal with housing for folks that are in need. Probably the best way, just some examples, the Harwich Ecumenical Council for Housing, the same in Chatham Ecumenical Council, the Housing Homeless Prevention Council in Orleans, and agencies like that all across the Cape. The primary focus is to help folks stay in their homes or help people get established in a home. And that's a really important, and in my opinion anyway, underfunded focus for much of the way the state invests their money. The state invests quite a lot, most of it in the dealing with shelter, et cetera, for families that become homeless. There has been some investment in the prevention of homelessness, but most of that's local, which is why this walk is so important. It takes about 1/6 as much cost to help a family stay in a home than to help a family once they're out. If you intervene, the average cost of intervening with a single mom or a family or an elderly couple that is in jeopardy of losing their home, usually you can work out whatever the issue is for about $1,500, if just looking at the average over the years. A small family that ends up in a shelter, typical stay 4 to 6 months, typical cost $20,000. So it's much more expensive. And when you think about the human cost, the kids are disrupted from their school, all the stress and difficulty of losing your home. It's clearly much, much more effective for everyone involved to try and help people stay in their homes. That's the goal of groups like the Harwich Ecumenical Council for Housing and Habitat for Humanities, et cetera. There also are some agencies in Hyannis that help children. The Champ House. Imagine where would a kid go who's 18 years old, he's been in foster care, maybe bounced around a little in foster care. Where do they go when they're 18? There's one in particular, had muscular dystrophy, lost his parents, and so he ended up in foster care, and folks were stealing his benefit checks and basically mistreating him. And thanks to a kind woman that just observed this, she took it upon herself to find a place for him. And he's now at Champ House, and he talks about it, being his family.
Wow.
So Champ House, Pilot House are also part of this. And It's really an important thing, and this walk is, as you can imagine, a $250,000 fundraiser is important. It's probably the first or second most important fundraiser for most of these organizations.
Yeah. Don't you think that it's a difficult task on Cape Cod to even talk about this subject, because so many people, especially a lot of our summer visitors, come here and see this gorgeous place with very, most communities on the outlook are wealthy.
Yep.
If you're looking at these communities, you think, oh, they couldn't possibly have
Right.
a housing problem.
Right.
So the convincing people that they need to pay attention to this must be a difficult task as well.
Well, I appreciate folks like you that help to get the word out. You're absolutely right. It's an invisible problem, especially folks that are not homeless but are in jeopardy. And I think that it's easy to imagine if you think about it. The average wages on Cape Cod are 1/3 lower than the state's average because we have a service economy. We have jobs that are pretty sparse in the wintertime. A lot of folks work in 2 jobs in the summer just to try to get through the winter. But average wage is 1/3 lower than the state, and housing is more expensive than the average in the state here. A 2-bedroom apartment on Cape Cod will cost a family that's working at average wages, not minimum wage, average Cape Cod wages will take them 91 hours to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment.
Wow.
So that means most young families can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Both families work. So, think about the folks that are the chambermaids, the waitresses, the folks doing lawn work, even the fishermen. One of the organizations, one of the organizations helps small businesses, and that's a really important element in this too. If you can keep a fisherman going, get them a low interest loan, or give them some help on the running of the business. In one case, that was true for a scalloper, and not only did it keep him in business, it kept 4 families employed.
Yeah.
So, but you can imagine with wages being lower than average, as you can see, and wages being seasonal and housing being expensive, it is difficult for folks to. And another sort of underrepresented population here are the elderly. The average Social Security payment for an elderly person is less than the average cost of a 1-bedroom apartment. So their entire month's benefit doesn't cover their rent. Right? So there's a pretty serious need here, and this network of agencies is a really important element in this.
And so a lot of the agencies, or a lot of the things that HECH does, would be not necessarily buying a house for someone, but tiding them over in difficult times, maybe for a month or 6 months or whatever, so they can get back on their feet rather than losing their house.
Right.
And ending up in a hotel room in Yarmouth or the Upper Cape somewhere. And
it could be, as I said, it's $1,500 on average. Sometimes it's more than that, but it's surprising how little it takes. But a good example, Rebecca is a client of HECH. She recently left the Marines. She served in the Marines. Her unit was the first responders in Haiti after the earthquake. She was injured in the Marines, so she has some disability benefit, but she's, able-bodied. She got home, enrolled in Cape Cod community, and got a job, and had enough to afford an apartment for herself and her little daughter, but didn't have the $3,500 it took to get first and last month's rent. And so she turned to HECH, who helped her out to get her into that apartment. She was living in her grandmother's house, sleeping in 1 bedroom. I've personally slept in one room with a 1-year-old. I can tell you, I never slept in there. I slept on the couch. You can't sleep in 1 bedroom.
No, you can't.